for our second episode today. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of you that listened last month, because it means a lot to just hear your feedback, hear your comments, getting the chance to talk to y'all and hear all about how the last episode helped you out, because we've all been there. And last time we talked about the feeling of wanting to quit. And so we've all been there. So make sure you check out that first episode. And let's get started today.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us. We're excited to be doing this again. I had so much fun last month, and it's been fun to hear some feedback and people that have watched and listened. And so thank you for that. And that's what it's all about. We do want this to be something that's relatable for people. And we know that there's certain things that we've just kind of like, hey, we've all experienced that. We've all been there. Yeah. A lot of times we listen to podcasts and things and we go, man, I don't know if I can relate to that because those people are so far ahead of me or, For sure. But we wanted this to be a thing where we're just going, hey, we've all kind of experienced those things. And so we've all wanted to quit, and we've all had times when we struggle with insecurities and all those kind of things. And so we hope that you'll just go on the journey with us, and we're growing. We're getting better. The camera angles are a lot better this time. Right. And I think the sound's better this time, and we're learning, and hopefully it's all working the way that it's supposed to. And so thanks for growing with us and going on the journey with us, and we're excited.
Absolutely. So what do you want to talk about today, Pastor?
I already hinted at it, didn't I? Right?
That's right.
We have all felt insecure.
That's true.
So Max, have you ever felt insecure before?
Yeah, I'm started off strong, I guess, but I'm insecure about my height. That's like a real thing, I'm a short king, but like I'm coming in at 5'3", and so that's something that doesn't go away. That's something that I have to constantly fight to be insecure or not be insecure about. So
yeah. Hey man, thanks for being honest on that and
right
putting that out there, man. I tell you,
pastor, you know what I'm saying?
I'm insecure about my double chin. That's why I stick it out whenever I take pictures like that, and so we all do that, man. We all have insecurities, I think. I feel insecure about this podcast, to be honest, to be real. Last month when we uploaded it, I thought, who's going to listen, and who am I to think that I should be doing a podcast? And, there's a bazillion podcasts out there. What do I have to say, and who cares about our little podcast and all that kind of stuff. In fact, it took forever to even decide to do it. So it took forever to decide to do it.
Right.
And then when we actually do it, to even go, okay, we're pushing upload. We're actually putting it out there. I don't want anybody to think that, I'm self-promotional or anything like that. And so, Max, you actually helped me with this. You are a big part of why we actually started this podcast. You want to tell everybody kind of about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we were just sitting down talking, and you kind of were like, yeah, I don't think I would ever do that. And I kind of think I said something around the lines of, yeah, there are a lot of leadership podcasts. There are a lot of churches. There's a lot of pastors doing podcasts, but there's only one Chad Benson. There's only one Chad. There's only one pastor in Burleson called Chad. There's only one Lifegate Church. And so people may not hear Stephen Furtick. They may not hear these other speakers, but they'll listen to you. So,
that helped. And not even like in a puff me up way, more in a well, maybe that's true. I'm probably not going to say anything on this podcast that people hadn't heard somewhere else.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do think that God gives us a voice and a way of saying things. It might be the same thing, but saying it in a different way that just resonates with different people. And I know that's been true for me. Like I've had people in my life that, they're saying the same thing as somebody else is saying, but it didn't really resonate with me. And then someone else will come along and say that exact same thing. And I'm like, wow, and it really does.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm still insecure about it just a little bit, but I'm getting over that. And I think there are some things that God has given us to say and to get out there and to help leaders and things like that. And so, thanks for that. That helped me a lot.
For sure.
But man, I feel insecure as a pastor even sometimes, I was thinking about it. What's funny is on Sundays is when it really rears its head. Usually it's after service. I don't know if you ever feel like that on a Wednesday after youth service, and you're like, oh man, how did that go? Did I preach okay? Did they like it? What was going on with that? And what's funny is that sometimes, on the days when I feel like, oh, I did really good.
Yeah.
Nobody says a word,
That's right.
And then on those days where it's like, oh man, that was the worst sermon ever. They're not even going to want me to come back next week or whatever. And then 5 people will be like, that changed my life, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, And so I feel like on Sundays, I feel that way sometimes when I get around other pastors and some of my peers and things like that. And I walk into the room and I think, how do I measure up? Am I good enough? If these people really knew me, then they really wouldn't like me. Or if they knew that I really have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't feel confident, it's kind of that impostor syndrome. And, I know that's kind of a buzzword right now, but it's a real thing. It's when people feel, like they don't belong or they don't deserve the success that they have, or that kind of that feeling of, well, if everybody knew, on the outside it looks like maybe I got it together, but underneath I'm kind of faking it till I make it. And it's that feeling. I saw a survey that said about 70% of people feel that way at times. And so I have definitely felt that way. You walk into a room of friends or leaders or peers or whatever, and you just kind of go, man, on the outside I'm trying to hold it together, not confident, but on the inside, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that holds us back a lot of times, though. What do you think, Max? You ever had that hold you back?
Absolutely. Well, I love how you defined it, or how it was defined. And it's this overwhelming sense that no matter how much we've achieved, we don't belong or deserve the success we have, right? Yeah. And I feel like that's my whole life up until this point. It's this pressure as an only child. My parents, they're probably listening to this right now, so my mom's going to feel guilty.
Hey, Mom.
Sorry. I love you, Mom. But this feeling of I'm an only child, so I'm kind of like, I got to figure it out. I got to do it right, Like we're not leaning to another child here to follow the legacy or create a good, life for us. And so there's this pressure that I got to amount to something. I got to be something. And that's not something my mom put on me. Like, that's not something she pressured on me. That's not something my parents put on me, but it's something I put on myself. And so though I get straight A's, though I did the AP classes, though I got into a college and transfer credits and yada, 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 all the great stuff, right? There's still this piece of me that's like, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah.
And they didn't say that. All along the way, my parents said, good job. You're doing great. You're doing awesome. Congratulations. You did a great job on this. And they helped me out along the way. But in that, I kept letting the negative voices kind of speak to me and say, yeah, but it's still not good enough. You still haven't arrived. You still haven't achieved perfection or where you want to be. And so, even in ministry, that's even harder. I know as a pastor, there's kind of this expectation that we have it all together, but we don't. We really don't. And
that's what this podcast is all about.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And we've all been there. We've all had that feeling of feeling like there's this pressure, and it's not always from our team or our congregation or anything. It's from ourselves. And that's not even something God's put on us.
Yeah.
There is a weight and an awesome responsibility in our calling, but it's not meant to be something we carry on our own, and it's not supposed to be something that crushes us.
That's so true. It was interesting. We didn't even plan on talking about that, but the birth order that we were born in can have an effect on that too. I'm a firstborn, so I feel some of that pressure.
There you go.
And an only child, sometimes being the baby or the middle child can cause you to feel insecure because middle children sometimes feel overlooked, or all the different things that go into that. And, I just know that it holds us back. What I know is that if we give in to insecurity and imposter syndrome and all those kinds of things, it's gonna hold us back from what God has for us, and we miss out on opportunities.
Yeah.
And I know that I could have missed out on even the opportunity to start this podcast if I would have listened to my own insecurity. And so I had a friend, fortunately, who encouraged me, and we moved forward in that. And I was thinking about it when I was thinking about what I want to say about this. There's this book that a good pastor friend of mine, kind of my pastor in a lot of ways, Pastor Scott Wilson, gave me or told me about a while back, a couple of years ago. I was really, really struggling with some insecurity and those feelings. I still do, but I was in a season where I was really struggling with that. And he gave me this book called David Perceived He Was King. And it was about David and how when he became king, he'd already killed Goliath. He'd already done everything, now he is the king. He's on the throne. But he never really saw himself as king until this passage in 2 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 12. And it says, and David then perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel. And it's amazing how he was king, but he didn't see himself that way. And this idea that sometimes, God has said some things about us, but we still have a struggle with seeing ourselves in the way that God sees us and
Yeah.
seeing ourselves in what God has said about us, even after there's, kind of the proof of it all around us. And the thing about that book, I mean, the whole book is great, but there was one part of the book that really spoke to me and really helped me. It was this part where Saul had said, whoever kills Goliath, you're going to get this reward. You won't have to pay any taxes ever again. Praise the Lord for that, right? That'd be awesome. And then the big one was you get to marry my daughter, the king's daughter.
Yeah.
And so David goes out to fight Goliath, and he defeats Goliath. And so you would think he would be like, all right, now, I get no taxes and I get to marry the king's daughter. And Saul even says, now, here's your reward. You get to marry my daughter. And David says, well, who am I? Yeah. I'm just from this small family and this small clan. I should never be able to be the son-in-law of the king. And here's the thing that spoke to me is Saul was ready to give his daughter to David.
Yeah.
And then when David said, I don't deserve that. I'm not good enough for that. Out of his own insecurity, then Saul then agreed with David and said, oh, that's right. I shouldn't be giving my daughter to you. And that, man, that hit me like a ton of bricks when I was reading that book, because I thought, how many times have I done that where out of maybe a false sense of humility or maybe really what it was my own insecurity is, well, someone would say something about me or someone would want to give me an opportunity or something like that. And I go, oh, no, that's not for me. Yeah. Or even a podcast. Well, that's not something I would want to do because I would never want to promote myself or whatever. And God might be wanting to bring a blessing. And bring me to something new that he has for me, but I might miss it because I'm going, it couldn't be me. And so instead of agreeing with what God has said, I begin to agree with what others are saying or what I'm feeling or whatever and miss out on that. And so, man, I know that in that moment when I read that, I thought, man, I don't want to miss something that God might want to do in my life because of my feelings of insecurity. Yeah. I don't know. What about you?
Man, I feel like I read my Bible on the right day today because I was just reading the story of Exodus, and Moses. Like, he was so focused on his inability, his insecurities, that he had like a speech impediment, right? Yep. And he's telling God, no, I can't do this. You got the wrong guy. It's not me. Like, I can't do this. And God's like, no, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. To the point where, like, God gets angry. Yeah. Right?
That's what I was going to say. He gets kind of frustrated with Moses. Yeah.
Well, let me make a suggestion to you, God. What about my brother Aaron? Yeah. Right? And he's like, let me get some help. Let me have somebody else do this for me because I can't do it. And God's like, he's already on his way. That's like part of the story that's like blows my mind. It's like God already knew. Wow. He was already sending the solution. And then he continues to doubt himself. And what I love about that story is that Moses focuses so much on who he was. And God tells him, don't worry about who you are.
Let me tell you who I am. That's what was his name even. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think for me, I'm learning the lesson today as we're even talking about this podcast. It's like, I got to stop focusing on myself and my inability or ability. Yeah. It's not about me. If he's working through me and he is the one who's doing the things in me, then I'm going to be all right. Yeah. Because he's more than able to do whatever I need him to do. So
that's so good. That's so good. And, that's the thing is it's really coming into agreement with what God has said about us. Yeah. And so, a lot of times we call it insecurity, but it's actually our own pride sometimes that won't even allow ourselves to see ourselves the way God sees us. That's true. So it's so important. And so I just put together a couple of things about like dealing with insecurity, imposter syndrome, things like that have helped me along the way. Put through just a little outline and hopefully like that's just kind of what I do. All right. So I just kind of put them in outline form and hopefully it'll be easy for people to remember. And it's been helpful for me. So the first thing I thought about how do you deal with insecurity is that you got to be willing to admit what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Some people will say, hey, just fake it till you make it. In my opinion, that's terrible advice. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons. I wrote them down. But, the reason is, first, is that it's hard to learn anything if you always already think you know it all. So if you're faking it till you make it, you're not going to learn anything new because you think you kind of already know. Second thing is faking it is exhausting. Like if you're always having to put on this good face and act like you have it all together, man, you're gonna be tired. It wears you out.
Yep.
But the most important thing is, I think if you are feeling like a fake, that's what imposter syndrome is. That's what insecurity is. Things like that.
Yeah.
If you're feeling like a fake, then faking it is just gonna make you feel more like a fake.
There it is.
And it's just true. So the way to stop feeling like an imposter is to not be an imposter. And come on, tweet that one, right? But it's just, that's the thing is like, if I'm faking it, the more I fake it, the more I'm going to feel like a fake. And so I think the reason sometimes that we feel insecure is because we're afraid to open up and let others see that maybe we don't have it all together and maybe we don't know what we're doing, because we're afraid if we let others see, they're not going to respect us, or they're going to reject us, or they're not going to love us. But I don't think that's actually true. I actually think that the more we fake it, the more we're going to look and feel like a fake to others.
Yeah.
And people can see through that.
Absolutely.
But the more vulnerable we are, the more we are willing to open up and say, I don't know, I'm willing to admit what I don't know, the more people are going to go, I can relate to that person. I can maybe even follow that person because they've been there too, right? We've all been there, and it becomes relatable. It's like Craig Rochelle says that people are, impressed with your strengths, but they connect with your weaknesses.
Yep.
And so from afar, people might see you and be impressed with you, but when they get up close, they may not be as impressed. They can feel that feeling of, I'm trying to act like I've got it all together.
Yeah.
And that pushes people away. But when we open up a little bit and admit, hey, I don't have it all together, I'm willing to let you see in just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Actually, people can relate to that, and they're drawn to that. They connect to that a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying share everything all the time. Yep. That wouldn't be wise. That's weird. We've all been around those people too, and nobody likes that, the overshare, the one that's just everything. But it is okay to open up and share some, Yeah. I know my counselor, he helps me with this. He taught me this several months ago, a couple of years ago, maybe even, and I've just shared it many times because it's been powerful to me that there's a difference between truth and detail.
Yep.
And I can, I've always been one that's been like, I want to be 100% truth, and I hope that's your heart too. But I don't have to give every detail. I can, everything that I say is true, but I don't have to say everything, and so it's just opening up. It might be that, it's 100% truth and 10% detail, but that little bit of opening up, that little bit of detail, I think helps draw people in. And if I'm faking it, then I'm going to feel like a fake, and others are going to, see through that. Absolutely. Imposter syndrome. It's not just imposter syndrome. Like, I am an imposter if I'm trying to fake it. And so, I think it's okay to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's okay to go, I'm not sure. It's okay to say, hey, we're still figuring things out, or I'm still figuring things out. In fact, here's a little thought that I've been processing. Mm-hmm. And it's not fully developed, but I'm going to
workshop.
We're workshopping it. Yeah. I'm going to put it out there. And here, the thought is, it takes confidence to have humility.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by that is, like, you have to be confident in who you are in order to admit what you don't know. You have to have confidence in your identity in order to admit that, hey, maybe there's some things that I need some help with. And I'll give you like a personal illustration.
Come on.
I feel super insecure when it comes to reading budget reports. Okay. So I'm a pastor. I'm fairly good with words. Some of you guys, may not agree with that, but that's what I do, at least, is that I speak. I'm good with words and content and things like that. I think I'm not great with numbers.
Yeah. Now,
I've been a lead pastor now for 23 years, and we've never had a problem with money. My whole thought was just always been spend less than you have coming in, you'll probably be okay. But I feel really insecure about the budget reports, and you look at those things and you're like, there's these huge spreadsheets. You're like, man, what in the world am I looking at? And for a long time, I would just fake it till you make it, just act like I understand it. And then I realized, if I keep acting like I understand it and just looking at it and go, yeah, it looks good, but I don't really know for sure what it means, and never ask, then I'm never going to learn how to read them. And so I had to learn that, okay, I have to be confident in my position as a pastor, even though I'm not competent in my ability to read budget reports.
Yep.
And so because I'm a pastor and, for 23 years we've done fine with our finances, it doesn't make me a bad pastor just because I don't know how to read a budget report the way that I would like to.
Yeah.
And so the confidence is, hey, I'm a pastor and we've done a good job for 23 years. And so I'm confident enough to be able to go, maybe I'm not competent in this area, so I can ask a question and then I can maybe learn in that area. And so, but it takes humility to admit that, but it also takes confidence to admit that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, as you were talking, I'd been thinking about this thing. It's called the knowledge quadrant.
Okay.
And so basically it's like 1 through 4. So level 1 is you know what you know, right?
Yeah.
Like I know what I know. Level 2 is you don't know what you know. And then level 3 is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then level 3 is you know what you don't know. Level 4 is you don't know what you don't know. And so if you don't start being confident and asking questions of like, what does this mean? You don't even know.
That you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like this next level of knowledge to go like, well, I'm not going to settle. It's like smart people know what they don't know. It's like, but not so smart people think they know everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you just don't know what you don't know. And you're talking about the 100% truth, 100% detail. One thing I thought we got to do a podcast episode on we've all been weird.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll be a funny one.
Yes.
That'll be a funny one. But what I was thinking is, and this is something that I've come up with, but I say everybody needs to know something, and someone needs to know everything, right?
Yeah.
Like my best friend, he knows everything about me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to tell everybody everything.
That's good.
One,
yeah.
that's just wise, and it's also not weird, you know? And so just making sure like, if there's somebody that doesn't know everything about you, and if you're married, that should be your spouse for sure. But there should be somebody else you can confide in. But if you don't have that, let's start there.
Yeah.
And then if people want to trust you and get behind you, exactly what Craig Rochelle said, to be able to relate to you and to get behind you, they got to know something about you. They got to know, like, you are human. You are not a robot.
Yeah.
You are not perfect.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah. And another thought that just came to my mind when you were thinking about that too is when it comes to like our own insecurity and our competence and things like that, is that you don't have to know everything.
True.
But somebody needs to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so sometimes even like in this instance of budgeting, I don't need to know everything there is about budgets and spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But I do need to have people in my life who do know.
Right.
And that's what's that helps with those insecurities is when I go, okay, hey, that may not be my level of competency, but I have people that do have that level of competency that are making sure that those things are happening as well. So that brings confidence too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So the first one is you got to admit you don't know. The second one is a little different though, is that you got to give yourself credit for what you do know. So if you're dealing with insecurities or dealing with especially impostor syndrome, then you got to give yourself credit. Here's what happens is most people who deal with impostor syndrome tend to take the blame for their mistakes and their failures, but don't give themselves credit for their successes. Yeah. So what we do is we minimize or we discount or we invalidate our contribution only to focus on the areas of our weakness instead. So we'll say stuff like this. We'll say stuff like, well, that went good, but I just got lucky. Or, I was just in the right place at the right time. Or, it wasn't that hard, or anybody could have done it. I was thinking about this. I remember when I first became a lead pastor, I was only 24 years old, and I was taking over for the church that my parents had planted, and they were the pastors, and, pretty young to be a lead pastor. Yeah. And I remember not feeling very confident, feeling pretty insecure, and having a conversation with my dad, who was the founding pastor. Yeah. And I said something like this, well, I'm just the pastor because I was the pastor's son, and I got lucky. I was just kind of in the right place at the right time to be able to be the pastor of this great church at age 24. And I remember what my dad said that really it stuck with me. And he said, listen, you may have been at the right place at the right time, and it helped you that you were my son, but they would have not asked you to be the pastor if you had not already proven yourself even at a young age.
Yeah.
And he said, if it was because you were my son and you were in the right place at the right time that you got the job, maybe there's some of that is true. But the fact that you were able to keep the job, and you actually got voted back in 2 years later, and the church actually grew after you took the job, that's something that you ought to give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
And man, I thought that's a different perspective. Sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for those things that we do know. And so we get so focused on the mistakes or the things that we don't know that we forget to go, hey, I can have some confidence in the fact that I do have some areas of competency.
Yep.
I was thinking back to the illustration of budgeting. You know, when I feel insecure about what the heck does this report say, and it's hard for me to read and I don't understand it all or whatever, it's okay for me to ask questions about it, but I also can have this confidence in that, hey, I may not be great at reading budget reports or creating budget reports or things like that, but I know this, that I've been a lead pastor for 23 years. Mm-hmm. I also know that I'm the founding pastor of LifeGate. I've been here for 16 years, and in the 16 years, the budget has grown every single year for 16 years. We've never had a deficit. We've never had a down year. Every single year it's gone up. And so there's confidence in that, okay, I may not be great at reading reports, but I'm pretty good at leading in the area of finances. Yeah. And so I have this confidence to be able to go, hey, I don't have to be insecure about that. You know, there are other people that know more than me on that, but I've got a pretty decent record on that. And I think that helps. That really helps me at times when I feel insecure to go, hey, I may not be where I want to be in this area, but I've got these other competencies that help me. And so I got to give, not just, admit what I don't know, but also give myself credit for what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So we got 2 down. Let's go for the third one.
All right. So we're going to admit what we don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to give ourselves credit for what we do know. Mm-hmm. And then the third one was we're going to be ready to commit ourselves to learning. Okay. So I think that's the key to overcoming imposter syndrome or overcoming insecurities, is to realize I might not know, but I believe that I can learn. Yeah. I like this quote that I found online. It says, I choose to convert my thoughts from I don't really know what I'm doing to I'm learning how to do something I've never done before.
That's good.
It's just a shift in mentality. Instead of thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing, you just shift it just a little bit and you think like this, well, I'm learning how to do something new. Yeah. And it's a difference. And when you think that way, it's like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning, and I believe in my ability to learn. I believe that I can learn it. I like what Adam Grant said. He said, imposter syndrome doesn't mean others are overestimating you. It's more likely that you're underestimating your potential. Confidence is often a result of growth, not the cause. Believing in your ability today is less important than believing in your ability to improve tomorrow. Yeah, I like that. Because so many times we think, well, I don't know how to do it today, and that's what keeps us from moving forward, or that's what makes us feel insecure. Yeah. But if we can shift that to realize, okay, I may not know today, but I do believe that I can learn. And it's not so important, that I believe in my ability today. It's more important that I believe in my ability to learn how to do it tomorrow. And I know that's helped me a lot in a lot of things, because there are times when opportunities will come my way, and I'll kind of be like David and think, I can't do that. Who am I, or whatever? But I've shifted my thinking to think, well, I may not be ready for that right now, or I may not know how to do that right now, but I think I can learn. I've learned other things. When we planted our church, I didn't know how to plant a church, but I learned along the way, and when I had kids, I didn't know how to, be a parent, but I had the ability to learn, as our church is growing. I don't know how to, lead a church that's growing to the place that it is now, but I'm learning along the way. When I became a presbyter, I don't know how to lead pastors, but I'm learning along the way. And so it helps with in my opinion, it helps. Hey, I may not know it right now, but that doesn't disqualify me from being able to do it, because I know that I can learn.
Yeah, no, No, that's so good. I feel like for me, there's this book I read recently. I think it's called I Guess I Haven't Learned That Yet.
Oh, yeah.
And basically the whole book talks about this lady's journey of motherhood, but then also moving places and just starting a new life, new job, all these different things, stages of life, stuff like that. And she learns to have grace on herself, to go, I guess I just haven't learned that yet. Not that I'm dumb, not that I don't know, not that I can't know, but that I would go, it's okay. I just haven't learned that yet.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not a parent yet, but I'm gonna be a parent.
You're a cat parent. We learned that last
That's right.
month,
That's right. That's right. It's just practice for a real human being. But there's these things in my life that I have yet to do, and that does not stop me from trying to learn them. Right? Like that doesn't mean I can't learn how to be a good parent now before I become a parent. But when I do become a parent, it shouldn't stop me from going, well, I thought I tried to learn these things, but in reality, you know, what it says in a book and what it looks like in real life
so true.
can often look very different. And no church, no position of leadership, no business looks the same. Different demographics, sociographics, right? Like there's so many different things that go into why your church or your business or whatever doesn't look like somebody else's, you know? And so you kind of have to learn it for your own.
Yeah.
You have to learn it in your context, learn it in your capabilities of leadership, but just go, it's okay. I'm going to learn it. I just haven't learned it yet.
Yeah. And that's what the Holy Spirit's work does in our life too.
Yeah.
You know, is that he wants to give us wisdom and guidance and counsel and all those things that will customize what we need to learn for where God has us, you know. And there's so many great books and podcasts and people and teachers and coaches and pastors and people that come alongside of us and help us. Yeah. But in the end, like you said, every situation's a little bit different. And so we're all going to be faced with things where we go, I don't know what to do. But that's why it's so powerful what Scripture says is that, you know, that's when God helps us. In fact, today in my personal devotional, I was reading and studying in Jeremiah where it says, call to me and I will answer you and show you unsearchable things that you did not know. And that was what the Lord was just speaking to me today, that, you know, there are things that I'm going to learn from a friend or from a coach or from a podcast or from a book that I read or something like that. And then there are certain things that only come from calling on the Lord, and he's going to show me the things that I did not know. He's going to give them to me in the time that I needed them, and there's confidence in that. So really, self-confidence really needs to be even more God confidence. Yes, we can have confidence in our ability to learn and in the fact that we have, you know, that we've learned in the past and we've had successes in the past. We can build on those. Those are competencies, but real, like, inward, you know, soul type confidence can only come from the fact that, man, I'm a child of God. I am who he says that I am. Yeah. He has put his Holy Spirit in me to guide me and lead me. And so I have a God confidence, and I can walk in that. I don't have to feel like an imposter because I'm not an imposter. I am his son. You know, you are his daughter, whatever. And there's something powerful about that.
Yeah. The last thing I want to just kind of say on all the thing that we talked about, as I was listening and as we were talking, it feels like there's like a line, because it feels like you said humility, false humility. You use the word pride as well. And I feel like it's kind of like a bit of a dance.
It is.
To go, I have to choose to know that I don't know stuff, and so I have to have some humility. I have to have confidence too. But it's like super both and. And as I'm thinking about it and as I'm talking about it, I'm glad you said what you just said, because I think if we don't have the Holy Spirit working in our lives, we won't know how to discern whether or not am I having a false sense of humility, or am I being prideful, or am I being overconfident, you know, and the Holy Spirit helps us discern your heart's right or your heart's not right.
Man, and I think that's why every single day you got to pray. You got to ask God, you know, God, I only want what you want. In fact, that's one of my heart's prayers almost every day. Like most of the time I pray through the Lord's Prayer. And so you start with, hallowed be thy name. You begin with worship.
Praise, yeah.
And then I'll go into your kingdom come, your will be done. And it'll be, God, your kingdom come, your will be done in my life as it is in heaven, in my family as it is in heaven, as in my church, in our leadership, in, my ministry, in every area of my life, going, God, and I'll try to put myself in that place where Jesus was when he was saying, not my will, but your will be done. God, these are things that I'm praying for. I'm about to ask you, giving me today my daily bread. But God, I am surrendered to you. I only want what you want. And man, when you're walking in that, then you can have a confidence that I'm walking in God's will and I'm walking in his favor. You can also walk in humility, but it's not a false humility.
Yeah.
And that's where that balance comes. And I know, man, I feel it too, because it's been probably a shift in my life that in the last couple of years, from, having kind of like feeling insecure and feeling like I don't know who I am or what I'm doing or whatever, to being a little bit more, feeling a little more confident, maybe feeling a little more assertive in my relationships and in my life. Yeah. And so it's been now like there's trying to figure out, how do you find the balance so you make sure that you're not, being insecure, but you're also not going over here and being prideful. And I think that's a daily thing, walking with God and the Holy Spirit leading us in that.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else we need to hit on?
Man, I think this is good. I enjoyed this. We went some places we didn't plan in our notes, but that was the hope that we would do that. Right. And so just encouraging everybody, walk in God confidence, be willing to admit what you don't know, give yourself credit for what you do know. Commit yourself to learning, and then we'll add another one, and it even rhymes. Ready? Submit yourself to the Holy Spirit. Come on, I did that right there off the top of my head. So good. But hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Would love if you'd share it with your friends and like it and do all that stuff, so that more people can hear the We've All Been There podcast.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We'll see you next month.